All right, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where in this beautiful world that you are. You are in the right place if you're here for the webinar about data analytics for associations, and we are so glad you are here. I'm Teri Carden. I am the founder of ReviewMyAMS.com and creator of an event called AMS Fest and a new event called Nondoozapalooza. The Gravitate team has definitely been around for many, if not all of the AMS Fests, maybe. These guys are in the know on everything data and associations. And not only do they attend and speak at AMS Fest, but they're also proud supporters of Review My AMS all year long. For those of you that may not know, Review My AMS is home to more than 1,000, yes, oh my gosh, I cannot believe we crossed that 1,000 mark. End user reviews on 70 association management systems. When companies like Gravitate support Review My AMS, it means that they stand for transparency in our AMS marketplace and that they truly understand the importance of the association professional's voice. They get it, that opinions on technology matter, and they're listening to what's happening in the association technology industry. I'm going to turn it over to Rob in just a few moments. Let's go over a couple of housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and it will be emailed to you and be accessible on the Review My AMS blog from the Gravitate team, along with some other key takeaways and a write-up. So dig for it on the Review My AMS blog, or feel free to harass me or anybody from the Gravitate team at any time, and we'll get it to you. And definitely, if you find today's webinar helpful, please feel free to, of course, pass it along to your colleagues. We have a feeling that you are going to have some good questions for Rob. Go ahead, throw out the hard ones. But so that we don't interrupt the flow of today's webinar, we're going to take about 5 minutes or so at the end of this fast and furious webinar to field all of your burning questions. So at any time during the presentation, go ahead and use that chat function on the right-hand side of your GoToWebinar window, and we'll do our best to get your questions answered at the end. So let's get down to it. Let's get down to business. I'm going to introduce you to my Gravitate friend, Rob Miller. Rob Miller is a CAE, who many of you know both as a senior association executive at the trade association 340B Health and as the president and co-founder of Avectra, the company that invented the modern web-based AMS with the launch of NetForum. Take it away, Rob.
Well, thank you very much, Teri. I really appreciate that kind introduction, and we are very pleased to be jointly offering this webinar today with you, and I want to thank everyone for being here. So I'm going to go through a short PowerPoint presentation that I think that you'll find very interesting, and then I'm going to jump right into some live client site presentations. So let's get going. So our philosophy at Gravitate is data analytics for everyone, and that to me is critical. When we provide analytics solutions, we don't want it to be in the just in the IT department. In fact, if there's an email that goes out that from a membership director to the IT person saying, "Can you please run this report for me or get me some data on this or that," I think then we'll feel like we didn't meet the goal that we had. So we want this for everybody to be using it. When I was at 340B Health, I saw that my most junior membership and event coordinators use the product, as well as my executive team. So I know it can achieve that and should be able to achieve that at your organization. We believe members stay more connected when their association knows them better. And why is that? It's because if you know know them better, you're going to communicate about the items that they're most interested in. You're going to tailor benefits to best meet their needs. And when you get really good, you're going to start to anticipate what they want before even they know they want it. So how well do you know your members? Is it somewhat, or is it intimately? And how do you currently make decisions at your organization? Is it a lot of gut feelings, or are you making those decisions with confidence? We help you get to know your members better so that you can make those decisions with confidence. And how do we do that? First and foremost, as I said, we make analytics available to everyone. The data in the system provides exceptional member insights to help you make good decisions. We simplify the complexity of the data, and I'll probably talk about a few examples of that. We provide actionable next steps with the data, and we actually identify bad data and transform and improve it as we're bringing it into the Nucleus system. So let's talk a little bit about what you'll see when I do my presentation. I will show you visualizations that are informative, insightful, and predictive. So for example, a good informative visualization is member retention history by year. And as you can see, this is very informative because it's telling me year over year that my membership is growing a little bit. And my student members are mostly growing. So it's a very informative, quick view. It's a very typical, very good chart to quickly give a user some very valuable information. The second type of visualization, common visualizations, are ones that are insightful. An example of an insightful visualization is total member value. The concept of total member value is comparing what the member paid for their dues versus what they're receiving in benefit for that. So in this case, this particular organization decided that things such as committee participation and being on boards had a value. Obviously, there's a value between what you're paying for your membership, the member price versus non-member price. A lot of organizations will spread the cost of the advocacy or lobbying and spread it all the way across, and that will become part of the value. But when it's all done, you have this information that then you can use to help you convince your member to renew in the coming year. So it's very insightful in that regard. The third and the most complex type of visualization is the ones that are more predictive. And a good example of that is one that provides revenue projections. So Nucleus has the ability for you to provide it 2 to 3 years worth of a dues renewal history or registration history, and then it will be able to predict what your future revenue will be in that category, which will be something that will help you make decisions. Through that prediction, you'll understand whether you can continue to invest in that, further invest, that type of thing. So very, very good from a prediction capability. So through those insightful and predictive capabilities, Nucleus provides a lot of actionable recommendations for you to move forward and make good decisions. We also believe a data analytics solution should have no limits. And when we say that, we think the system should be flexible and it should be open and it should be available. And in terms of flexibility, we want the system to be able to connect to other important tools such as Power BI and Tableau. It needs to be very open. So we have a lot of pre-built integrations, we have API access, we have SQL access, and then availability is a key. We sell our product on a site license basis so that you can make it available for everyone on your staff to access all the different packages that come with the system. But even more importantly than that, because it's a site license, you can make the system available to your boards, to your committees, and your chapters. And in this case, this is a chapter view that you could look at all the data. You could allow the chapters to see just that data that matters to their chapter. But again, the site license allows that type of nice behavior. And then maybe most interestingly, and what is a real nice opportunity, is the fact that you can take the visualizations and you can project them into your website, maybe behind a member login, so that the members then can see visualizations that you want them to see. In this particular example, this organization did a self-assessment survey, so they allowed their members to assess themselves. And then once they did that assessment, they were able to come in and see how they compared to other members. And then they took it one step further, which is that they wanted to be able to monetize this. And so what they did is that if the member was willing to pay an additional subscription fee, these filters on the right side of the screen became available, and they were able to further filter on the data. So they could ask questions such as, I'm a mid-level nurse and I want to become a very senior nurse. how do my skills compare to somebody who has those higher skills? And so I would be able to look at that and see the types of things maybe I need to learn so that I could become a more senior member of that professional community. So the system is very flexible, very open, and available. Now, when you're all done implementing Nucleus, what you end up with is this kind of visualization where Nucleus is sitting in the middle. It's pulling data from all the different important systems that you have at your organization and blending it all together. Because as I said, we believe members stay more connected when their association knows them better. And Nucleus is that platform for you to get to know those members better because it blends all the data from all those systems together and it uncovers those really key insights that we've already started talking about. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start going and demoing the product and showing you actually how some things work. I have about 3 scenarios that I want to walk through, and I'm going to just flip over to that right now. So the first one is in this particular it's called a key indicator. Some of you may call it an executive dashboard. And this is a very common thing that we will create for one of our clients, is we'll create an executive dashboard so that they can see all their important information together. So in this case, the number of members. Now, that may seem like an obvious thing, but I bet a lot of associations do not know how many members they have. And part of that's because you may not, may not have clarity on the business rule of that member. And we make sure that clarity takes place so that you get that. But in this executive dashboard, we got members, we've got professional development events, we've got total subscriptions, we've got the number of page views on your website, we've got the mailing rates from your email system, and then of course we've got the fall conference, and then finally a goal against the fall conference. So it's the kind of information that your executive team is going to want to have on a regular basis. And of course, if they want to drill further into the information, they can drill down and get to that. Basically, in Nucleus, most staff only need to know how to do a couple of things. The first thing was to pick that essentially carousel that they wanted to be in, and we call it a carousel because, as you saw me just a moment ago, you move back and forth on this highest level by going back and forth with the carousel. Then the person needs to know to drill in to get to further, to see more detail. They then can use the filters on the right side of the screen. So we like to, take the things that would come from your AMS system and use those as filters, or we have filters that'll come from your other systems. You can use a number of different filters to get to the data. Once you've drilled to the data to the level that you want, then the next thing the person has the ability to do is to be actually able to explore the data. And once you've explored the data, you can further work with that data. This table of data works very much like Excel. You can sort it, you can filter it further. Of course, the next thing someone could do is they could download this data, say to CSV or JSON. So if you wanted to move this into Excel and do more things with it, you can easily get the data out. And then finally, the last thing is that a typical user would do is that they would print a PDF so that they then could take those charts that are in that visualization above and access those charts and do something with it. So you might want to email this to someone else. I used it quite regularly when we would be preparing for our board meeting. So we would then append these to the end of our board book of our PDF. So it was very easy. And please note that those filters that I picked come right through and are put right into the report, so everybody knows what they're dealing with. So in terms of using the system, that is really the extent of what somebody needs to know. There's just about 5 or 6 steps, so it's very easy to learn to use. So the second example I want to show is this is the student member retention analysis. And what this does is this helps an organization determine what activities are most likely to predict somebody renewing their membership. And so what this allows an organization to do is to test that. And right now, it's telling us that there's the predicted renewal rate based on just all the data is about 49%, and the actual renewal rate was about 56%. And what you can do then is you can start testing what items are going to have more impact. So I might want to go to areas of expertise and pick analytics, and then I might want to say go to cohort and say they shared some personal information and they attended multiple events. And as you can see, by me picking those different filters, I'm able to drive up the predicted renewal rate as well as the actual renewal rate. And of course, you want to get that number as close to 100% as possible, because what you're trying to do with testing this is you're going to figure out what are the 2 or 3 or 4 things that if you can get your member to do those things, the probability of them renewing is very, very high. So if you figure out there are 3 things that drive high retention, you can then find the members in your system that maybe have only done 2 of those things. You can then get to that data table, export that data, drop it into your email marketing tool, and then send them an invite to maybe one of those other activities. Or maybe you want to have a calling campaign. But the idea is this allows you to really identify what is driving that, that actual renewal. Okay, so the third item that I want, example I want to get to revolves around member engagement scoring. And I'm actually going to my old organization, 340B Health. And what I want to do is I want to tell you a little bit about what we did from a methodology perspective and then show you how that's impacted in the software. So what we did is at that organization, we were pulling data from our AMS, we were pulling it from an email marketing tool, and we were pulling it from a community where people could post discussions. And so what we did is we gave 1 to 2 points, say, for an email open or click. We gave 5 to 6 points for posting or reposting a message in the community. And then we gave a whole series of different numbers of points for things that were happening in the AMS, such as 50 points for attending a free webinar, 100 points for registering paying for the annual conference, 150 points for participating in a committee, 250 points for calling a member of Congress. So you get the idea that what we would do is we figure out what are those most valuable things at your organization, and then we run that model, and then suddenly what you have is you have the engagement within your organization. So now, first of all, 340B Health was a trade association of hospitals. So we wanted to run the engagement at 3 levels. We wanted to track engagement on the actual individuals. Then we wanted to then roll that up to the hospital level. And so anyone who was working at a hospital, those points would roll up. And then finally, we had health systems. So we rolled that up to the 3rd category as well. So then ultimately what happens, the first thing you see is what is the overall engagement across the entire organization. And what you'll see here is that it was growing October to November, December. That was happening during the renewal cycle because they were a calendar year basis. And then it dropped off afterwards. And I'm going to tell you it's going to start going up again because they're going to get ready to start having a meeting, which will start driving a lot of engagement again. So once you look at that, you can go a little level deeper and start looking at the engagement, say, by month or by multiple months at what's going on at the organization. And we'll just give this a second to fetch the data. And so this is showing you how the engagement was doing. You can see that there was, of course, that, there's spikes at different times of the year. And but what becomes real interesting is that if you start looking at the data, you can start figuring out who your most engaged member is. And when you have that, then obviously knowing who your most engaged member is very valuable from a perspective maybe from advocacy or lobbying. In this case, we can see that this University of Utah Healthcare is an extremely high engaged organization. So if there was some legislative activity that really demanded, say, Utah and New York to step up to the plate and support us, we would know that those were the two hospitals that we would want to go to help us out. So that's where one of the ideas of the most engaged is very, very valuable. Now, what is also interesting is if you sort this data differently and start looking at just the members, say, you can find out who are your least engaged members. So here's a member that's only got 56, and here's another one that only has 0 engagement points. Now that would be what I would say is a retention challenge. And if you know that 6 months in advance, rather than at the end of the year, there's a chance that you can do something about that to encourage them to renew. Another example would be if you just look, say, at the prospects and you look at the most engaged in that group. Come on. I'm having trouble getting the filter to change the sort on for me. Well, it's not going to cooperate today for some reason. Oh, there we go. I was pressing the wrong column, dummy. So now I'm looking at the most engaged prospective members, and obviously those are your acquisition targets. And so this one was really an interesting one in our organization, is because it used to be a challenge for us to figure out, well, who the heck do we call? Where do we really put our energy to try and get a particular hospital to join our organization? Well, this just tells you exactly who to call. You just take the top of the list and you just work your way down. And our most junior membership coordinator figured that out right away, and this was extremely valuable for her. This goes into other areas. So I'm going to go and look at individual member engagement or individual engagement. And where we use this, and you can see, I'm not going to sit on that list because it has actual names, but you saw that it had individuals with our highest engagement. So we, several times a year, we would get a request for a new board member because someone would drop out, and we would normally get about 65 to 75 nominations for that particular new board seat. That used to take us about 3 weeks to drill that list from 65 to 70 down to 3 people to give us as a slate to our board. But by using the engagement scores, we were able to, just look at the top 10 most engaged of those who were nominated. And now we only had to do our vetting, what universities they went to, where they do their residency, what other associations are their members, on that very small subset of lists. So it took a process that used to take 3 weeks and took it down to 3 days. So that was another very valuable thing. And the last thing I'll mention about engagement scoring that was very useful is that we were able to gamify it. And the way we did that is we started showing the individual members how many points they had against the people who were in the top scores. Because what we would do is whoever got the top 5 scores, we named them our MVPs, we invited them to our annual meeting, we gave them hotels and free registration, and then we bring them up on stage and honor them. Well, people wanted to win those. And so we would get people calling us in November and December asking us what we could do what they could do to increase their engagement score. So that gives you an idea of the types of things that you can do with member engagement scoring, as well as a number of the other things that I went through, such as the predictive financial modeling and that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint screen, and we've got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to toss it back to Teri and see what kind of questions that she might have been asked.
Okay, very cool, Rob. Thanks so much. I was just even thinking about the applications all over the place from my times at my associations, and how incredible it would have been to have something like this. So thanks for all of that good information. So you talked about the KPIs or the KIs for executives and the board. Is there a way for only executives to see certain things?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not uncommon for an organization to want, the executive team just to see that one carousel. You don't want them to have any other menu items. You don't even want to have those drill-ins because you want to keep them contained in some way or another. So we have role-based security in the system, and you can use that role-based security not only for creating that executive dashboard for the board or for the executive team, but you could create a subset of that just for your board, or you can create certain, visualizations or certain carousels just for maybe a chapter group or even a certain set of your members. So if you only want the membership department in their area, you can set up the security to handle all that. We also can inherit security from certain AMS systems that even make it even a little easier.
Okay, cool, that's helpful. Thank you for that question. And another attendee asks, why wouldn't we just purchase an analytics tool like Tableau or Microsoft BI?
No, that's a great question. So, those are great tools, and but the thing is that basically that's what they are. They're a tool, and they're a blank slate. In other words, you have that tool and you start from ground zero. And so then you've got to do all the work to create all the blending of the data, do all the integrations to all the systems, your AMS, your email marketing tool, your Google Analytics. And then once you have all that, then you got to create all the visualizations. And so we've done a lot of that work for you already, a ton of it. So we've integrated to many of the most popular systems, many of the popular ones that are being reviewed in your Review My AMS, Teri. And then we've created visualizations, so we have essentially a baseline for each major area of an association's organization. So there'll be ones for the membership department, ones for the conference department, certifications, so forth and so on. So it just gives you a huge lift of work already done, and then you can take a Power BI or Tableau and you can still connect that directly to our data lake, which is where we store all that data, and you could even do more one-off type of activities as you see fit.
Wow, yeah, talked about like best of breed on top of best of breed.
Yeah, that's exactly
Okay.
right. That's kind of the idea, exactly.
Yeah, wow. Okay, thanks for that question. So Renee asks, Rob, when you were at 340B, how did you decide how many points to give each activity of engagement?
So, it's funny, I get that question every time. And, what we do is we sit down with the organization and we talk about, and we like to get input from various departments if possible. We try and talk about what are the things that they view are most valuable to the organization. And in fact, an example is we were giving a lot of points for someone creating allowing us to create a video that highlighted their organization or one of their patients. But what we found is getting a patient video was far more valuable, but much harder, because clearly they have privacy issues. They're not, they may not be healthy. And so then what we did is we actually doubled the points in year 2 for that particular item. So what I recommend is that you sit down and you give it your best shot in the first year, and you run that through, and then you reevaluate, because the points can always be recalculated with a slightly modified methodology, and and then hopefully in year 2 it'll be just slightly better than it was in year 1. But my recommendation is just take your best shot at it, and it's going to be certainly better than you are right now with nothing.
Yeah, I mean, that's really good advice. And I feel like there's almost like its own blog post or webinar just on, how to handle the engagement points, for developing.
There could very well be.
It's like its own topic, because I have had this conversation more than once too. Okay, we have one last question and then we'll wrap it up. Rob, about data blending. We have data in many systems. What are the factors or considerations when pulling them all together?
Well, first of all, bringing them all together, I would, just the fact that you're thinking about that, I think is excellent, because one of the things we did when we researched the data that are across all of our clients is that only about 20% of associations' data are actually in their AMS, which was shocking to us. And in fact, I found out at my old organization it was only about 8%, because these email marketing tools and community tools, they're creating so much information. So it's it's growing and growing and growing. So you want to blend all that data. Certainly factors that help is that if you are storing some kind of ID, like if you store your ID from your AMS into a record in, say, your community, we also can attach records by email address, which is usually a good one. Then ultimately, sometimes we will use some kind of composite ID of different fields to get something that's very close. So that's another thing to think about. The last thing is the nice thing about this tool, Nucleus, is it's built on top of a big data technology. And so you can bring as much data as you possibly can get your hands on, and it's not going to be any problem. It doesn't change the cost of the system. There's no additional hosting fees. So just bring in all your data and then take advantage of all the insights you can get from it.
Cool. Well, you definitely know what you're talking about here. You've got the chops. You've sat in the seat to back it up, and so I think this is an incredible tool for us to move our associations forward. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Gravitate, for being supporters of Review My AMS. Rob, for sharing all your insights today, and to all of our attendees, we're so glad you were here to take in all of this good information about data for associations. In the wise words of Jeffrey Moore, without big data, you are blind and deaf and in the middle of a freeway. So may your data endeavors be successful. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone.